Hi, and welcome to another Salesforce Helper video. Today, what I'm going to talk about is validation rules and interfering with flows. What often happens is you're writing a flow, you go to action it, and you get an error message because of validation that is stopping your flow from running. So what I'm going to show you today is how to get around that by putting in a flow bypass, which will stop the validation from interrupting your flow. So what we have here is a validation that I've just created. It's a validation on the opportunity, and it triggers whenever the stage is closed won. So I've just built a flow that gets the opportunity. In the screen flow, you can change the name of the opportunity. And this is the opportunity that we're going to change. You can see here, it's closed won. So if I take this ID and I run this flow, just to show you the error that you get from the validation. So we're just gonna rename that and click next. This is what users get when the validation stops the flow. And this can be quite frustrating for the user. So what I'm going to show you next is how to get around this and stop it and run your flow without the validation kicking in. What we need to do is create two fields. The first field you need to create is a date time field. So choose date time, click next. We'll call it flow bypass time and click next. Next again, you don't want it to be visible to anyone. You just want it to be in the background and click save. The next field you're going to create is the field, it's a checkbox. So you want a formula field and you want to call this flow bypass checkbox. And you want to click checkbox and go next. And in this formula, what you want to do, I'll just go into here. So you want to find the field that you've just created. So you want to bring in the flow bypass date time. Then you want to say greater than now, brackets, minus, and you want to put in these numbers, so 0.0005787037037037037. What this does is looks at the field that we've just created, which we can pass a date time into. Then it looks if it's greater than now minus 4 to 5 seconds. And I'll explain this a little bit more once we do the flow. So you click next. Next again. You don't want it to be visible to anyone, so don't put it on any page layouts, and you click save. So we have our two fields. We have our date time field, which we're going to pass a date time in via the flow. And we have our checkbox that is either going to show true or false. So if we go back into our flow, what we want to do is update the opportunity. So update with the flow bypass date time. So go to the opportunity object, say how you're going to find it, and find the field that we've just created. So the flow bypass time, flow bypass date time. And then what we want to do is we want to create a variable that is a formula. And what we're going to choose is date time and put now brackets. So what this formula is going to do is create the time right now. So the date is today, the time is now. And we're going to pass that through to the flow bypass date time. So when this flow runs, what it does is it stamps this with it, and our other field, which is the checkbox, is looking at that difference in time, and it creates that checkbox to be true. So after the 5 seconds, the checkbox goes to false. So what we want to do is look for that in our validation and say that only when the checkbox is false, trigger the validation. So anytime this flow is running, it will not trigger the validations. One thing that, sorry, I forgot to say, is the update has to be before any other update of the opportunity. So if you're updating the opportunity in just one update, that's absolutely fine. But if you had this flow bypass after here, it would still error. So what we have to do now is go back into the validation, and we have to add this to the validation. So we say and inserts, and we want to look for our flow bypass checkbox. So we insert that, and what we're going to do is say, sorry, just bear with me. Equals false. So what we're saying here is this validation should only trigger when the checkbox of the flow bypass checkbox is false. So if we save that and we go in here, this is closed one. Just check that the validation is still working. Yep. So we're still getting that validation. It's closed one and the validation is still kicking in. Let's go into the flow and let's see it working. So let's change the wording, put hello at the end, click next, and we don't get the validation. So if we go back into here and refresh, we can see that the name has changed. Oh, can't spell hello. And the validation is still working. So the flow bypasses the validation. Thank you very much for watching.